guest lecturer at the university, and then before that I was in Melbourne 20 years ago for a theatrical performance in La Mama Theatre in Carlton. I remember the big limousines pulling up with the mafiosi with the dark glasses. So that was my first memory of Melbourne. But anyway, it's changed for the better, and it's just wonderful to be here. And I'm really grateful for this group for preparing my piece, because I got in touch with Leila Engel through the AMC, and I sent her some of my work, and it's just wonderful that they're able to prepare this work and be very brave in performing new music. My piece, Canto di Enheuduanna, is in Italian. It means Song of Enheduanna. Enheduanna, the name Enheduanna means priestess to the jewel or the ornament of heaven. Now, Enheduanna had a very interesting career. She was the daughter of King Sargon of Akkad, and he lived many, many years ago, about 2500 BC. And he was the king of Akkad, that was the northern part of Iraq, or Mesopotamia it was called at that time. And he had conquered the southern part of Iraq, and he wanted to unify the whole region. And he thought the best way to unify the region was to unify them in a religious way. So there was two very great goddesses there. One was called Ishtar, and she was a Semitic version of the goddess of war, enlightenment, and fertility. And there was Inanna, who was the Sumerian version of that goddess, and she was a goddess of, enlightenment, fertility, war, many, many things. And so he gave his daughter a job. He installed her in the priestess of the moon god, and the moon god happened to be the goddess's father, and he said, try and unify these goddesses. And so she came up with a whole cycle of wonderful poems. One of the cycles was called The Exaltation to Inanna, and to this day, her poems are judged as in their literary value is basically on par with Homer and the great Greek writers. And in those days, no one ever signed their works of art. They never signed their music. They never signed their poetry. But she had she had great ego strength, and she had a lot of pride in her work. So she signed her own poems. And she's also very important because she was the first woman composer, they say, because she actually accompanied her poems to music she composed herself. And the people who actually trained with her as junior priestesses had to sing and learn her songs. So she was very, very important in that respect. Now, the piece Canto di Enheuduanna was actually composed for a convention on women music, which was held in Italy, in Teramo, which is in the region of Abruzzo in Italy, and it took place in 2002, this conference, and it was run by the Fondazione Atkins Chiti, Donne in Musica, which is a foundation Atkins Chiti Women in Music, and it was a wonderful conference, and they invited composers from Israel, America, England and Australia and Italy, and to participate. Unfortunately, I didn't go, but my music went with me. My music went in instead of me. And it was a piece that basically, it uses musical material from the Arabian tradition. They're called maqamat. Plain a way of saying them would be scales or modes. It uses modes from the Arabic tradition. It uses compositional processes which use numbers which have symbolic significance. The number 7 is very important in this piece. If you listen very carefully, you'll see that the composition has 7 stages, and at the end there's an 8th stage, like a coda, in which transformation occurs. In ancient Mesopotamia, the number 7 was a sacred number, and the ziggurats of Ur, the wonderful ziggurats of ancient Mesopotamia had 7s. They were basically constructed around the number 7, and in all the religious tales of that age, there was a motive which involved a journey through 7 stages and enlightenment at the 8th stage, and that is sort of symbolized musically in the work. The flute is very prominent in this piece, and I'm so grateful to have a wonderful flautist too, and also the piano is very prominent too. In ancient Mesopotamia, the flute was considered an instrument which was like the voice of God, because they believed the breath contained God. So because the flute involves breathing, the flute in many ways in the ancient cultures was considered to be the instrument that was much closer to God than any other, because it involved breath. And in all the celebrations which were held in honor of the great goddess, the flute was always used. So the flute was very important. I'm a string player myself, and I love the cello, so the cello is extremely important. And also, I did learn the piano. So the piano, in many ways, is all of the instruments are equally important in this work, and it's quite a polyphonic work rather than a polyphonic in the sense that each line is just as important as every other line. There's no instrument that every instrument has their hour of fame in this piece, so it's like every instrument is of equal importance, and for that reason I'm very grateful to have this wonderful group perform it. And this is the Australian premiere. It's been performed in Italy but never before in Australia. So.
The beginning of man, the voice of God. I'm so lucky. And all the good stuff. All right, here we go. It's serious now.